Welcome to Animalia channel. Myself M. Gunakar. Today let us discuss Wuchereria bancrofti life cycle. Before our discussion, let us start with the systematic position of Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria belongs to the phylum Nematoda because it is cylindrical in shape and thread-like structure. It belongs to the class Phasmidia or Sesernentia because of the presence of glandulosensory structures, and it belongs to the order Filaria because its mouth is without lips and males with unequal copulatory spicules are present. It belongs to the genus Wuchereria, species Bancrofti. It has got its name from the two scientists. One is Brazilian physician Otto Edward Henry Wucherer, and the other is British parasitologist Joseph Bancroft. Now, this parasite is commonly called lymphatic parasite, and it causes the disease called human lymphatic filariasis. And there are three parasites which causes lymphatic filariasis were discovered, among which Wuchereria bancrofti was the main one, and it distributes in the Africa, Pacific, Asia, and America, and other parts of other tropical and subtropical areas of or parts of the world. And the Wuchereria is spread to from one person to the other person by an intermediate host or a vector, which is generally Culex pipiens fatigans. Of course, it is different in vector is different in different geographical areas. In some areas, it is affected by Anopheles, and in some even Aedes species also spreads the disease or acts as a vector. And the second parasite which causes lymphatic filariasis is Brugia malai, which was identified in Asia and whose vector is Manchonia species, and Brugia timori, which is endemic in Indonesia and whose vector or intermediate host is Anopheles barbarostris. As we discussed, Wuchereria bancrofti is commonly called human filarial worm, which is a pseudocoelomate, as like other Ascalminthis species. This is also a pseudocoelomate, which is thread-like nematode, and commonly called it is one of the roundworms. Adult worm is digenetic endoparasite. That means it completes its life cycle in two hosts. Primary host is man, and the secondary host is mosquito, which is mainly the Culex or Aedes mosquito in some places and Anopheles mosquito in some places, as we have discussed in previous slide. And in India, Culex pipiens fatigans is the main intermediate host. And this Wuchereria bancrofti causes lymphatic filariasis, and this is also called bancroftian filariasis or elephantiasis because the symptoms resemble the parts of the elephant. So that's why elephantiasis, where the lymphatic and genital organs get disfigured and disabled and becomes extremely painful. Now, let us have a look at the discovery of Wuchereria bancrofti. As I said earlier, Wuchereria bancrofti has got its name from two scientists, Wucherer and Bancroft. They were named after its discoverers Otto Edward Henry Wucherer and Joseph Bancroft. Wucherer discovered the larvae of Wuchereria, whereas Joseph Bancroft, who was working as a surgeon at Queensland, discovered the mature filarial worm, and he was the first person to suggest that it was born by mosquitoes. That is, it spread by mosquitoes. If we look at some of the historical aspects of Wuchereria, parasitic effects of Wuchereria bancrofti have been mentioned in some prehistoric texts, and some Greek and Roman writers have shown that the symptoms of Wuchereria disease were similar with the features of elephant, that is especially legs, such as enlarged limbs and dry skin of infected people. So since that time onwards, this parasitic condition, the symptoms were commonly called as Elephantiasis. And in India, filariasis like disease has been mentioned for the first time in Sushruta Samhita of 6th century BC. And the symptoms were also described in Madhava Nidhanam, which was a treatise. Treatise means a systematically written description of something. So it was a treatise by Madhava Kara of 7th century AD. This parasite has worldwide distribution but mainly affects tropical and subtropical areas like West and Central Africa. Now you can see in this figure, South and Central America, Southern China, India, Japan, West Indies, Arabia, Malaya, Korea, South Pacific Islands, and affecting over 120 million people. And it was as this disease was mostly found in poor and is most commonly found in individuals inhabiting areas with poor sanitation and hygiene. Hence, it was included in the neglected tropical diseases list by World Health Organization, and and this disease has caused significant economic and psychological impacts wherever it is endemic. Then let us have a look at the parasitic life cycle. As I said earlier, which is a digenetic parasite, means it completes its life cycle in two hosts. Primary host is the man, and the secondary host is some type of mosquito, especially the Culex in India. So, as you said, this in most of the tropical countries, this Culex pipiens fatigans is the vector or secondary host in especially the urban and semi-urban areas. Whereas in the Anopheles mosquito is also in rural areas mostly, which spreads the disease, which acts as a vector for Wuchereria. And in some endemic islands of Pacific, even the Aedes mosquito also spreads disease, which is acting as a vector or intermediate host. So generally, the adult worms lives live as endoparasites in the lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes of man. So in this figure, you can see various places where the lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes of man were present, and whereas the larva live in different parts of the body of female mosquito, especially the stomach. From the stomach, it goes to the thoracic muscles, and from the thoracic muscles, after spending some time in the thoracic muscles of the mosquito, and later on some by undergoing some moltings, then it goes to the it transforms into, or it will be moved into the mouth of the mosquito. So hence it is called digenetic parasite. When we see the morphology of this parasite, so the adult worms, especially both the adult worms look long, slender, and cylindrical with round ends, both on anteriorly and posteriorly. The round ends are present and they are creamy white in color. If you see the male is always smaller, which measures about 4 centimeters long and zero point 0.1 millimeter width. Whereas tail of male is curved ventrally. You can see this curved ventrally with a cloaca and bears about 15 pairs of minute sensory caudal papillae, and two copulatory spicules of unequal size are also present. The female generally longer when compared to the male, which is longer, and measures about 6 to 10 centimeters long, and even the width also 0.3 millimeters width, whereas male is 0.1 millimeter width. Tail is not curved, but it is a straight one, but gradually it becomes sharper, tapers, And genital pore or vulva. Now you can see here the genital pore or vulva, you can see here, located midventrally in the pharyngeal region. And this vulva possesses ovijector, and this female has been described as ovoviviparous, means it lays the eggs, but the eggs are not come outside immediately after laying. They are hatched inside the body of the host. So only the larval stages will come out. Larval stages will come out, but not the eggs. So this condition is called ovoviviparous. And if you see the Wuchereria life cycle, the copulation takes place in the lymph glands of man, as I have described. It takes place in the lymph glands of man. Female worm is ovoviviparous and it liberates many active embryos are called juveniles, called microfilariae in the lymph channels. And these microfilariae you can see in this figure, which are elongated and microscopic with blunt head, and tail, pointed tail, somewhat pointed tail, which measures about zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.3 millimeters long. Very small, microscopic. It is covered by a thin cuticular sheath, and they leave the lymph glands and pass into the blood vessels of thorax. They do not develop further unless sucked by an appropriate mosquito species or vector within 70 days. And they show nocturnal periodicity. So during night from 10 p.m. to 4 p.m. they migrate to the peripheral blood vessels. So this is nothing but this causes advantages to the microfilaria, because during night they can be sucked by the vector, which is a mosquito, and have a higher chance of being transmitted to the secondary host. So development of microfilaria in mosquito. After, if the mosquito bites the infected person, then these microfilaria, they enter into the mosquito's alimentary canal. When mosquitoes suck the blood of an infected individual, the sheathed microfilaria, just now I told you, they are surrounded by a cuticular sheath, reach the stomach. They lose their sheath, and within 1 to 2 hours, they penetrate the stomach wall and migrate to thoracic muscles. They pass through, in the thoracic muscles, they pass through the 3 larval stages by molting in 10 to 11 days. Now the first stage larva, you can see here, it measures about 124 to 250 micrometers in length, 10 to 17 micrometers in breadth, and it becomes thicker. Now you can see this is the first stage larva, and shorter and sausage shaped with spiky tail. Second stage larva, where it measures about 275 to 330 micrometers in length, it's somewhat longer, and 15 to 30 micrometers in breadth, sheds its cuticle, thickens, enlarges, and metamorphoses into second stage. Then third stage larva, which is about 1500 to 2000 micrometers in length, very longer, elongated, and 18 to 23 micrometers in width, and spiky tail degenerates, and it is digestive, genital organs, and body cavity are well developed, and it is infective stage to the new host. So please remember, this is the third stage, is the infective stage to the new human primary host, and the third stage larva waits for the new human host for its development. So larval stages of microfilaria in mosquito, if you see, this is the first stage larva, which is, it takes only 2 days for the development, and which measures about 124 to 250 micrometers in length, and 10 to 17 micrometers in width, and it is a sausage shaped larva. Sausage shape, that's why it is called sausage larva. It is a first stage larva, and it undergoes molting after 2 days. Then second stage larva comes, and whose duration of development is 3 to 7 days, and it measures somewhat more longer than the first stage, 275 to 330 micrometers and 15 to 30 micrometers in size, in width. Then after its development, it again undergoes one more molting, then resulting third stage larva. And you can see this is the third stage larva. Its duration of life is developmental is 10 to 11 days, and it is very much elongated and measures about 1500 to 2000 micrometers in length and 18 to 23 micrometers in breadth. And this is actually the infective larva which is ready to be transmitted to the new host. If this infected mosquito bites the other person, then these infective larvae from the thoracic muscles of the mosquito, they are transported to the labium and they are ready to enter into new human host whenever this mosquito bites the other person. Then coming to the maturation of microfilaria larva into adult. This happens when the infected mosquito sucks the blood of a healthy human being. It releases the third stage larva, just now I told you, which is an infective stage in the skin of the host near the site of the puncture. And the larvae get attracted by the warmth of the human body and invade the skin either through the puncture or on their own. In some books, it was mentioned that directly the larval stages enter into the microfilaria larvae enter into the bloodstream. Anyway, the larvae migrate through the subcutaneous tissues and reach finally the lymphatic vessels and accumulate at a particular lymphatic region, especially the inguinal lymphatic vessels or scrotal sacs or in the abdomen of the abdominal region. And these larvae, they begin to grow into mature adults approximately in 5 to 18 months. They attain sexual maturity. The male and female live together in coiled forms in the lymphatic system and undergo copulation. And again, the female Wuchereria produces new generation of microfilaria and then the cycle repeats. So you can have a look at the life cycle of Wuchereria in this figure, and clearly two adult worms, the male and female, you can see here, live together in the lymphatic vessels of man and they undergo copulation in the lymph vessels of man, and the female releases this microfilaria larva. And as I said, the females are ovoviviparous. They release the the eggs which are hatched inside the body, and the microfilaria are released. When these microfilaria, they circulate in the lymphatic vessels and reach the blood of man, and in the blood, when they enter into the blood, they then they are ready to transfer into the secondary host. And when a mosquito of that particular region, maybe it may be a Culex mosquito or Anopheles mosquito or Aedes mosquito, based on the geographical region, it enters into that secondary host or vector, and in the body of the secondary host or vector mosquito, they reach the alimentary canal, they reach the stomach of the mosquito where the sheath gets dissolved, and they exsheathed mosquito reach the hemocoel, and from the stomach they reach the hemocoel and thoracic muscles where this larval stage undergoes molting to form one first stage larva, which is a sausage shaped larva. Then it undergoes second molting to form elongated larva, and again third molting to transform into itself as a elongated third stage larva. And this third stage larva is infective to the new host, and this is now ready to be transmitted to the other person. And when this mosquito and this third stage larva goes transfer and it transfers itself into the mouth of the mosquito, and this mosquito with third stage infective stage larva bites the other person. This third stage larva enters into the other person, into the blood or on the skin. It reaches its way into the subcutaneous tissue, and from there the lymphatic vessels. After reaching that lymphatic vessels, they undergo two molts and transform into the adults. So here, if we see the pathogenesis or effect on the host of Wuchereria bancrofti, the light infection causes filarial fever and mental depression and headache may be resulted. Whereas if the number of worms increase their number and they block the lymph vessels, and they not only block the lymph vessels but the inflammation also takes place. So this condition is called lymphangitis. That is, blockage or inflammation of lymph vessels is called the lymphangitis. Then lymphadenitis. Lymphadenitis is nothing but blockage or inflammation of lymph glands. So heavy infection causes the enlargement of limbs, that is especially the arms, legs and scrotum in males, whereas in females, arms, legs and mammary glands, that is breasts, due to the blockage of lymph flow in the lymph vessels and lymph glands. And this condition is called lymphedema, whereas in which the fibrous tissue is formed in these regions and the skin becomes dry and rough and lose all sweat glands, and hence showing similarities with the parts of the element. The skin of the elephant is dry, because so the same the symptoms can appear in the human body. And dilation of lymph vessels in inguinal, scrotal and abdominal regions also takes place. This phenomenon is called as lymphangiovarics. And lymphorrhage also resulted by rupturing of the lymph vessels. Hydrocele is nothing but accumulation of fluid due to obstruction of spermatic cord, and the hypersensitivity reaction to filarial agents also result in some persons, which is called occult filariasis. This can be diagnosed as simple blood smear is enough to diagnose the parasite, but the blood sample must be taken during the period when the microfilaria are in the peripheral circulation. And even X-ray examination can, by X-ray examination also we can detect the worms which are dead and calcified. And is there any therapy or control? So actually, the therapy's complete treatment is not yet known, but diethyl carbamazine, it is commonly called as hetrazon, is the drug of choice, and it is a multi-therapy treatment with ivermectin and hetrazon or albendazole can be more effective for this. Prevention is better than a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure, as the say goes. So here the protection against mosquito bites is the best prevention, and by destructing the mosquito larvae, then by uh, with chemical control or biological control, we can prevent this filaria easily. And if you see these points, you must remember. So what is the type of parasite? Is a nematode, an endoparasite, and is a digenetic parasite. The infection is caused by mosquito bite, and the mosquito species is different in different areas geographically. And as I said, it is a digenetic parasite. Primary host is man and the secondary host is mosquito. And especially in India, the Culex pipiens fatigans is the secondary host. And female Wuchereria is ovoviviparous. And infective stages to man are especially third larval stage of Microfilaria are infective stages, which are elongated microfilaria larva. And through the injured skin, they enter the human, host. Then migration of larva happens in during the night time, is called nocturnal periodicity, especially in the peripheral blood vessels, so that the mosquito can suck the blood. When mosquitoes suck the blood, so they can enter into the body of the secondary host. Then the lymphangitis, lymphadenitis, elephantiasis. So the lymphangitis is nothing but inflammation of the lymphatic vessels, and lymphadenitis, lymph glands, inflammation of the lymph glands, and elephantiasis resulted when the flow of the lymph is blocked in the lymph vessels. And the treatment, there is a multi-therapy treatment with ivermectin and hetrazon or sometimes albendazole will be given. Thank you.